This weekend, I did something crazy without even realizing it, and then I had people on multiple platforms coming at me after I posted the video. Here's a little snippet. I went to church. And if you're new here, I'm Jenny Gage, and this is Life Take Two, where I share how I escaped from church and rebuilt a beautiful atheist life on the other side without my crazy, churchy ex husband. And I can see why people were concerned, and I appreciate the concern. And I definitely feel like that video does need a little bit of an explanation for my audience. So, that video was originally labeled as POV ex-Mormon goes to a Christian church with a coffee bar or something like that for the very first time. And I did say in the description that this is based on a true story of what happened to me the first time I ever went to Christian church after 44 years of Mormonism, which is something that actually happened 6 years ago, not this weekend. So it was just supposed to be kind of fun and lighthearted. We were at church and there was this giant coffee bar there with a million different options. And the coffee was really damn good, by the way. So I thought I'll reenact my first time ever going to Christian church where they had coffee and donuts, because as a Mormon, like, that is a big deal. Total honesty here. Like, every single time I attend any type of church and I'm allowed to have a Starbucks in my hand or they have a coffee bar or whatever, it still feels rebellious. Like, it never wears off. After 44 years of Mormonism, taking coffee into church is probably the single most rebellious act that I ever do as a human being. And if I can couple that with like a tank top and maybe some shorty shorts. So that video was not the actual first time that I went to church, and coffee didn't convert me to Christianity. But then that begs the question, what was Life Take Two, ex-Mormon, ex-Christian, atheist pastor Jenny doing in a church at all? I go to church. I don't know if I would say frequently, but it's definitely not occasionally either. From time to time, I attend church with my partner because I'm in a mixed faith relationship, and that mixed faith relationship is new within our relationship. When Kevin and I met, not quite 6 years ago yet, I had just come out of the Mormon church, but the next week I went to that Christian church with the coffee that was like reenacted in that video. And I spent 4.5 years hardcore Christian. After leaving Mormonism, I felt like the Mormon church had kept me from having a true relationship with the real Jesus. So I kept Jesus and dove into the Bible, and I was in like a single adult group and a divorced parents group and Bible study on Wednesdays. Then I went to church on Sundays, and I was like as much involved in my Christian church almost as I had been in the Mormon church. Kevin, who is a deeply devout Christian who works at a Christian school, who's part of a Christian worship team, and who absolutely loves his church community and has had a lot of positive impact from his religious worship throughout his life, met me in the middle of being a Christian. And it was actually one of the foundations of our relationship. Our very first couple of dates were going to church together, and it was really meaningful to both of us to have somebody that we could worship with. So for the first 4 years of our relationship, Kevin and I attended church together, had Bible studies together, went to the trunk or treat together, and prayed together in our home, listened to worship music, sang songs together. We read our Bible together. We were deep into Christianity. My son attended Kevin's Christian school, where I also volunteered and participated as much as I possibly could, because our church was my whole entire community and had replaced the Mormon friends, family, and community that I had lost. But along the way in my Christian journey, I started to deconstruct the Bible. And then I started to really tune into how I felt when I was reading the Bible, especially with my kids, and how I felt when I was participating in religion. And unfortunately, I then began to have a faith crisis within Christianity when I concluded that there was no evidence for God at all, that there was certainly no evidence for the rabbinical Yeshua being a God or anything other than just a rabbi and a philosopher. I began to see the same problems in Christianity as I had within Mormonism, specifically a lot of discrimination towards LGBTQ. And a dismissal, if not outright discrimination against women. And then I would have some just really intolerable experiences with people within my church community. And I left the Christian church. To be clear, I didn't leave Christianity because of the people or the policies. I left just simply because I don't believe any evidence for the Bible being anything other than a collection of mythological writings, which may have meaning for some people, but doesn't have any for me. And I don't think that it is true. And so one day, in the middle of this relationship that had been established on faith, I had to tell my partner, the love of my life, that I no longer believed in Jesus. And that was a really hard day, both for me and for him. I'll tell you, I think that coming out as atheist in a relationship that's foundationally been a religious relationship is one of the most terrifying things that a person can do. That was the single hardest thing that me and Kevin have ever been through. It was hard for me, but it was especially hard for him because the person that he had fallen in love with, Christian Jenny, with faith in God and all the worship music and going to church together and doing Bible study on the trunk or treat and all that stuff, that girl was gone. And now he had this version of me that left us lacking some of the points of connection that had previously held us together. Mixed faith marriages are extremely challenging, but it's a bigger challenge when that mixing of faith happens within an already established relationship. It's a renegotiation of everything. For the past 2.5 years, Kevin and I have been navigating a mixed faith relationship. Of course, being in the ex-Mormon space, I have a lot of tools in my hand. I have in my contact list some very close friends who are deconstructionists, former pastors and authors and psychologists and professionals, my own therapist, to help us navigate and help us tweak things so that we can redefine and rebuild a better relationship on the other side. It was really, really hard in the beginning, but I will say just about a year ago, it started to not feel hard at all. And I would say that Kevin would feel the same. It's just who we are, and we navigate it beautifully. If any of you are interested, I'd be happy to do some videos on how we've created a happy mixed faith relationship. That is where my video from church comes in. For the first year after breaking up with Jesus, I didn't attend church at all. First of all, I did have a lot of conflict with some of the pastors who I was deeply disappointed with as human beings in general, and especially as Christians. And I just didn't want to associate with a religion that continued to do harm. And I wanted my free time on Sundays to finally embrace life after spending, 2,400 Sundays of my life stuck inside a Mormon church. So Kevin would go off to church and do his thing on Sundays, and I would go to the farmer's market and go for a hike and do my things on Sunday. But we realized that our relationship was a little bit parallel and that we weren't coming together that often. There's only 7 days in the week. Kevin works 5. We drive up to Phoenix to exchange kids one day and then church on Sundays. We really weren't left with a lot of time together. So I began to go to church with Kevin once a month, sometimes twice. If there's a worship night or some family get together or, Christmas Eve, I'll attend with them on those days too. Now, I do have really specific criteria. I won't just attend any church. I certainly wouldn't attend a Mormon congregation. There are a bunch of Bible thumping pastors here in our area that I absolutely will not support. And if there is something negative in the sermon while I'm there, Kev knows I'm going to put in my earbuds and I'm going to tune into my atheist church or listen to Brene Brown or science. We found a congregation where the message is something that I can get something out of it, whether I believe in Jesus or not. And I love being part of a community that's doing service projects and different things because whether it's religious or it's the Boy Scouts or just the neighbors on my block doing good for humanity is something that I like to participate in. I don't take communion or bow my head or pump my hands, and I will sing the songs, but I take out all the God and Jesus. And honestly, I love church so much more now that I don't believe in a God, now that I'm not there for religious reasons at all. I am allowed to just sit back and appreciate the people who are putting on the summer camp. And I can just appreciate the band and listen to the music without worrying about whether or not I'm feeling the Holy Ghost. And I'm very open about the fact that I'm an atheist. That was a really important criteria for me. As we were looking for churches that we could attend together, we went to different ones every single Sunday, and I would introduce myself the same every single time. I am the atheist partner of Kevin, and I'm just looking for somewhere that I can come and fellowship and get to know people. And then I would wait for their responses. And 99.9% of the churches that we attended said that they would pray for me, that, they'd be happy to sit down with some Bible study. There were a couple of pastors that actually told me that they worried for my soul and that I must have a really miserable, unhappy life. One pastor, one Sunday, when I said that after church, actually shook my hands and said, "Do you mind if I pray for you right now? Because I want to try to soften that little atheist heart." And I said, "No, thank you. I don't want you to pray for me. And my atheist heart is already soft." And he said, "I would really love to pray for you if you don't mind." And he started to pray and I stopped him. And I said, "This is really offensive. Can you accept me if I never join the church, if I never believe in Jesus, he never enters my heart? If I just come every Sunday with my partner as my little atheist self, is that going to work?" And he said, "I just don't know anybody who doesn't eventually find the Lord." He could not even imagine a nice girl like me not saying yes to Jesus eventually. The church that we attend the most often together, the pastor will actually preach the sermon to atheists. There are little bits where he'll say, "If you're not a believer, if you're here today and you're not a Jesus person, you're not a God person, and you don't want to bow your head and pray in this situation, then why don't you just put your palms up, take a deep breath, find something beautiful to look at, and ponder on that for a minute while the rest of us pray." And that's exactly what I do. Now I'd love to hear from you. Are you in a mixed faith marriage? If so, did you start off that way, or did one of you have a faith transition somewhere along the way? And do you go to church together or no? Thanks for watching. Have a great day.